let's continue now. Now we talked about the clean kind of venture builder kind of company. Let's go into the research from universities, that kind of point of view, Torkel. I know that's where you come. I think it's important to try to see how technology transfer and venture building, where it meets, or if it meets, or how it meets, or put them in the same speech.
Of course, yeah, and thank you so much, Alvaro. I think I was smiling a lot during your presentation because we do say a lot of similar things here. So with the risk to repeat myself, I will speak about the similar topic. But thank you so much for having me, Magnus, and and to let me speak on this topic. My name is Torkel Bjärneman. I'm the founder and CEO of Myrtleed Innovation. And before I get into the kind of the venture building topic, I just want to give a quick background about myself and Myrtleed Innovation. I have an engineering background from the US, and whilst I was doing my studies already, I was very intrigued with the commercialization side of research and new technologies, which led me to actually start working as a technology analyst for the technology transfer office at the university. Naturally, I became a technology-centric business developer. So for the past a little bit over 7 years, I've been working as a business developer and entrepreneur within both academia and startups. And during this time in 2020, I was working at one of the top universities in the world for education and research, but also for commercialization. And I noticed that there was a lot of struggles when it came to commercializing research. So I came up with an idea that there needs to be more independent actors in the world helping supporting the innovation ecosystem with just this topic. So I officially launched Myrtleed in January 2024. So we're a very young company still, but the mission is to help develop business focused solutions and gather the right deep tech commercialization expertise in one place to help bring these scientific discoveries out of the lab and into the world, hopefully, of course, for the well-being of our environment and society. So fast forward to today. Today, we're a team of experts. We have one full-time expert, which is myself, and 2 on-demand experts, one in England and one in Finland that's helping. So we have a collective experience of over 35 years within deep tech areas such as sustainable materials, clean energy, AI, quantum technology, and semiconductors and silicon photonics. And what exactly does Myrtleed do? Well, we try to support the innovation ecosystem by being a complement to all the actors that exist today, whereas that's a university, a researcher, an incubator, or a corporate that's looking for a technology solution. So what we do is that we gather and offer independent deep tech commercialization, and we couple this with real-time innovation intelligence. What is that? Well, that's technical business and market insights and data that we gather through standardized methods, but also through dialogues with the industry to help understand what are the needs out today. And then we connect that science and the deep tech with industrial needs and the relevant stakeholders. And this can be from both ends from the spectrum. It can be starting with the technology or the research, finding the need out in the industry, or it can be a corporate looking for a certain technological solution that might solve one of their pain points. On this topic, I also want to say that we're not a venture builder or venture studio per definition, like Alvaro's company was, but we do work a lot in the intersection with the universities, researchers, and very newly formed startups at very early technology readiness levels of even lower, like such as TRL 1 and 2 and so on. So as I said, the idea for Myrtleed came because I saw that there was a lot of challenges when it came to research commercialization. And in very rough strokes, when we commercialize research, we usually look at kind of 2 routes. We say we can either look at licensing a patent to a corporation. This was what Alvaro was just talking about, that they scoop up the patent and kind of do the development in-house, but that's easier said than done. And the other one is through venture creation or creating a spin-out, as it is called. But there are a few general reasons why research stay in the lab and doesn't even become a spin-out at the end of the day. And one of those reasons, which is that not all researchers do want to become full-time entrepreneurs and CEOs. This is totally understandable, and we respect this. It's hard to expect that someone who has been taking a position as a scientist that is happy in that role want to become someone that stands on stage and pitch in front of investors and trying to raise money and doing that journey. But today, the structure, how it is mostly, is that we do expect the researchers to become the entrepreneurs. And that's where sometimes we get a halt. And as a result, the team formation becomes very tricky, because now we need to find someone to drive the commercialization forward. We have to find someone who's experienced and that can be operational within the company. And they have to have a background, often a technical background, coupled with a very business savvy and entrepreneurship mentality. And the universities and the incubators, they cannot be operational within the companies. They are there for support and guidance and resources, sometimes money, of course, but they don't take active positions within the companies. So that's a huge challenge. And then, as Alvaro was also talking about, we also have to synchronize the commercialization together with the IP owners. That can be the university or it can be the inventors. And the commercialization team that will drive the commercialization forward. And this might result in so-called deadlock, where nothing is happening as a result. And some things you have to consider is, what is the weight of the past work that's been done in the laboratory versus the future work that needs to be formed to commercialize the IP. And you also might have a group of inventors that you need to consider. Some of those inventors, or maybe even all of them, want to be involved in the company. So then we have a very technically heavy starting team for the company. We also have to, of course, consider the universities that they want to stake. This could be through IP licensing deal or equity, for example. But you also might have to consider external IP, like Alvaro was talking about. What happens if you have an IP at one university and another one at another university? They together become the competitive edge of that venture. That can be adding to the complexity. So the spin-outs that actually make it out and becomes a spin-out, they risk being too technology focused. They might start having a very messy cap table at the beginning of their journey. They might fail being commercially oriented, so gathering the right market feedback, understanding what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And this can lead, of course, to all sorts of future challenges. Attracting investment is one of those challenges, of course, that is a risk. And I also wanted to touch a little bit about this word venture building, because venture builder and venture building now has become more and more used. But what is actually what are we talking about when we say venture builder? Well, first and foremost, a venture builder, similar to an incubator and accelerator, is an entity, sometimes independent and sometimes affiliated with, let's say, a university or something like that. But the key difference is that the venture builder is involved pre-incorporation, whereas the incubator and accelerator, they're involved post-incorporation. And the key thing here is that the venture builder model, therefore you only need a business idea that is matched with an entrepreneur or a driver that will take it out into the world. This could be the research, for example, which is the business idea, and then you have an entrepreneur taking the research and drive the commercialization. Whereas an incubator and accelerator, they often require a business concept at least, and someone who will drive the commercialization. This is, for example, a lead entrepreneur should be present when you apply to an incubator. A venture builder acts as an institutional co-founder. As Alvaro was talking about, they can be operational within the companies, they can take meetings, they can have board positions, etc., etc. Whereas the incubate and accelerate provides mentorship and coaching to their companies that enter into the incubator. An interesting thing with the venture builder model is that sometimes the venture builder holds the equity in the company, and the team that comes into the company vests that equity towards some KPIs that it sets. Whereas an incubator, they invest money in the companies where the team holds the equity. we're talking now, how can you utilize this in sort of a university world? And we are seeing that more and more universities are adopting a sort of similar model to the pure venture building model. But the most common has been is the incubator and accelerator. There's already tons of incubators and accelerators that are affiliated with universities, but also, of course, independent incubators and accelerators. I also want to mention that, of course, sometimes it's not always a hard line between the two. Sometimes a venture builder might take some elements from the incubator model, an incubator might take some elements from the venture builder model. But this is just good to set the stage of what are we actually talking about when we're talking about venture building as a model. So going a little bit back to the research commercialization and why we believe that the venture builder model is a great option for research commercialization. Well, the first one, of course, is that it lowers the hurdles for the researchers. This is the key one here, is that a venture builder model gives the researchers a possibility to stay as a researchers and do what they love. And this can be part-time, this can be full-time. Part-time could be, for example, as a scientific advisor to the company. They work full-time for the university as a professor, spend maybe 20% of their time on the spin-out. But they are still able to just focus on the technology. But it can also be full-time as a CTO, for example, but it's still that they have the ability to focus on technology and not having to consider all the other things like marketing, sales, pitching to investors, and so on and so forth. The other key thing is that the entrepreneur or the driver will be part of the team from day one. And this is really important because then you can set the company to be commercially driven from day one. And sometimes, for example, how it works today is that when a spin-out is incorporated that might be researcher-led, you have an entrepreneur trying to join in after almost maybe even a year after the incorporation. And that company might already have a set name, a set little bit of a brand, maybe an idea of what they want to try to do. So then it's harder for that entrepreneur to go in and change that. So if that entrepreneur is part from day one, it's a lot easier for them to steer the commercial direction of the company. Of course, the operational support is a great key benefit, and it can also increase the chance of enrollment into the incubator. So this is not a replacement of the incubators that exist. This is rather a complement, because now the incubators, they get companies or ideas and concepts coming to them with a more robust foundation. So it's easier for them to select companies that have some due diligence done before. Secondly, it's built on repeatable processes. It makes it a lot easier to have a standardized process of how you create the company, how you deal with shareholders' agreements, banking, etc., etc. The venture builder model already has this figured out. So for a researcher that might not have experience with this, for example, it makes it a lot easier for them to just let the venture builder handle. One of the key things is that it avoids premature start. It follows a need-based approach. What do I mean with that? Well, before the startup or the spin-out is formed, the venture builder makes sure that it actually solves a sort of a need out in the world. The venture builder can perform some sort of market validation, talking to the industry, and this is sometimes lost in the current model of how research is commercialized. There's a lot of spin-outs out there that after even a year being incorporated, they might not really know what problem they're solving out in the world. And that's crucial for commercial success, of course. Avoids deadlock, messy cap tables. Again, if it's a structured and standardized format, we have one structure kind of fits all. And last but not least, the founding team vests equity, which is quite interesting, because then you can have a CTO with technical targets, you can have a CEO or the entrepreneur with commercial targets that you're following, and then they vest the equity along the way, whereas the venture builder sort of is the equity holder just to control the development of the company at the earliest stages. But there are some considerations, and Alvaro was already talking a little about this. How do you compensate, for example, the owners and the inventors of the IP? From my experience, and also to set it up for success in the future, I think it should be considered that maybe only focus on sort of convertibles or royalty fees or licensing fees for these the owners of the IP that will be sort of a little bit more passive or work part-time within the company. So this can be part-time inventors that might help out a little bit in the technical development that is part of the inventor team, but also the passive inventors. It might be better for them to get royalties, for example, so that we don't end up with any, say, so-called dead equity in the company, because that will make it harder for investors to invest in the companies. Of course, the university, if they're the IP owner, we need to find a structure that they're happy with, and Alvaro has already talked about that. The compensation of the team to deliver commercialization of the IP is critical, because it's very easy to overestimate what we've done in the lab and underestimate the work that is to be performed to actually commercialize it. We are talking about in deep tech, maybe 10 to 15 years. You have to work really hard within a company setting in order to actually commercialize and start to see any sales, for example. So we need to have the founding team with a long-term equity incentives, because this is what investors want to see as well. They want to know that they have a founding team that is fully committed to this idea and this research and this company. That's going to raise the chances also for investors to invest in the company. Of course, we also want to have stock options, for example, for key hires. So if the university takes too much equity at the start, you will see founders and key hires getting diluted too quickly, since they are going to be there for a very long time. So that's something we need to consider. Of course, gathering associate entrepreneurs with the right background. And Alvaro actually already said this. How do we gain the trust from the universities and the researchers to enter into a model like this? I don't know how much time I have, just but a quick example. Sire is not a spin out, but it's a company that was initiated by Vargas Holding and H&M Group. Vargas Holding is the company behind Northvolt, Stegra, and a few other deep tech and innovative companies. And them and H&M Group saw a huge need out in the world about textile recycling, textile to textile recycling. So they went and they did the due diligence. They found that there's a huge need for this. It's a huge problem in the world. They went out, they identified the technology, they gathered the team in place, they put in the money. So they let the money, the team, and the technology work together. And that's a great example of sort of a venture builder model. And I just wanted to mention that, even if that doesn't per se come from a university right out like that. But last but not least, how do we see ourselves in this movement? Well, today we already provide independent business support or an operational support. We can help early stage spin-outs as business developers and so on. And we do provide market and industry insights, so to help spin-outs knowing what real need they are targeting. What we started doing recently is that we have started a entrepreneurship and a researcher pool, where we want to gather aspiring deep tech entrepreneurs, but also researchers that might be seeking co-founders in one place, so that hopefully in the future we can match and get a great match there, and that can result in maybe a company or two. And last but not least, of course, in order to get entrepreneurs that are deep tech savvy, we need to nurture them somehow. So we envision ourselves to be a part of that as well, where we can educate and nurture talent in-house at Myrtleed, but specifically how you commercialize research and hardware, which is quite a tricky field. And of course, if you want to collaborate or interested in us, please don't hesitate to contact us. And with that, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me speak.
Very good, Torkel. Thank you so much. Before we continue, I'll just tell you, you talked about Vargas. I need to mention Polarium and not the least IRA as two of the companies they have founded. Yeah. There's some specific reasons for that. The other thing I would like to say or highlight is that you have just, your company, Myrtleed, have just become an associate partner to Deep Tech Alliance. So again, these are the kind of difficult issues that's between success in deep tech and research. There's a lot of different things that has to be taken care of properly, and most people who are not even close to this, they actually have no idea how complicated it is. But unless we get this to work properly, this is the Deep Tech Alliance idea. As long as we don't fix this, we will never be successful in Europe in deep tech either. So it's a very important thing. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions at this point for Torkel? No.
I think Alvaro had a question on the chat.
Oh, yeah, there's too many things for me. Alvaro, please.
Yeah, I can just ask it right out loud. Torkel, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to better understand your business model, because I see, and you mentioned very clearly, you're not a venture builder. You pretty much help, I think, both sides of the table, but I couldn't understand like what is your business model?
Yeah, no, so today, mostly what we do is that we work with universities and researchers at very early stages to help them understand the market better. So what we do sort of is translate their science into commercial language, and we go out and we speak with the industry and our industry network to gather market data and insights to help steer their direction forward to understand. So that is one of our main things that we're doing today. Of course, we're also working with early stage spin outs and technology based companies in that stage as well. That might be researcher led, for example. And we go in sort of as a consultant and help them, and we try to be as operational as we can in the early stages. But what we want to do is really focusing on making sure that these spin outs, they are targeting a real need. So we make that connection between science and a need out. But this can also be from the corporate side. So if corporate, we can also work with corporates, for example, that has a very particular need that they want to get solved, and they can come to us, and then we can identify the research or the technology that might help solve them. So we're sort of a bridge between the research and the real need and the corporates and the industrial needs today.
Awesome, Torkel. But you do it like in a consultancy fee way in both sides?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, there's a good follow-on question to that. So can you do it the other way around? Can you help or do you help corporates who do venture building internally to get their products out in the market? Because that's a challenge as well.
Yeah, of course. And I think, I mean, we want to enter into that field more and more. And of course, as a young company, you have to take one step at a time. But we see a lot, like we speak a lot with the corporations and the industry, and they see a big need. Like it's hard for them to sometimes to find the right technology that can solve. And sometimes also the technologies they're seeing or say a research might not be presented in a way for them that makes it easy for them to understand if that is actually a solution. So what we do is that we translate something that's complex and the science into a format that corporations like to see in an easy way and make that connection.
Great.